Hello, everybody, wherever you may be. My name's Larry. My call sign's Kilo 7 Hotel November. Welcome back to the Shack here in Northwest Oregon. This is Ham Radio Live, show number 109. I'd like to ask you to please hit the subscribe button. The subscribe button helps people find us here on Ham Radio Live to help learn ham radio, hopefully get them on the air. If you'd like to hit the subscribe button, we would be grateful. Our promise to you, no ads. You're not going to have to see an ad and bang on that skip ad button on your phone or your tablet. I hate that. This show's going to be about helping hams get licensed. It's going to be technician and general questions. We'll see if we have some time to make a QSO or two. We'll see how it goes. You know, you never know about that stuff, but we'll do our very best. Welcome to the show. We just are so honored. So many people watch it. And from all over the world, it never is lost on me. Never. Today is Wednesday, December 30th, 2020, and my name's Larry. It's a pleasure to see you. We're going to start with technician questions today to help people get on the air. This is the very first license exam in the United States. We're going to focus heavy for the rest of the week on exam questions. We have some folks who are getting ready to take their exams that watch the channel, and we'd like to make sure that we help them the best we can, okay? First question on the technician reads, which of the following is covered by the National Electrical Code? Okay, so we're talking about basically the electrician's rule book here, okay? So for electricians, not ham radio operators, very important to distinguish the two. If you see this question, you see the National Electrical Code. It has to do with electrical safety inside the ham shack. It has nothing to do with bandwidth, modulation, or exposure limits. It's simply about electrical safety inside your ham shack. So those are things that are covered by the National Electrical Code. And by the way, do want to let you know, we always put a tag in every one of our shows in the description box to the American Radio Relay League. If you'd like to become a ham radio operator, you'd love it, you'd love it, you'd love it. My goodness, you can talk to people from all over the world with radios from the comfort of your home. You can do text messages, television, you can do talk, you can do whatever you want to and meet some of the most wonderful people. So please contact the American Radio Relay League. They'll be found at ARRL.org or look in the description section below. Click on the link, okay? Next question for the technician exam in the United States reads, on which of the following bands is image transmission prohibited? So this is slow scan, fast scan television, or just sending pictures, right? Now this is an easy one for someone who's been a ham, but someone who isn't, it's confusing, okay? 160 meters is top band. That's going to be 1.8 megahertz to 2 megahertz. You got a lot of guys who've done that forever, and they love top band. It's right above the AM dial. So no, not 160, not 20. 20 is our daytime frequency for the most part all over the world. It's not 12 meters either. It's 30 meters. On 30 meters, you cannot do any image transmissions whatsoever. 30 meters was set aside quite a long time ago for CW, RTTY, and data modes, but not television or sending photos. So keep that one in mind. 30 meters is your answer, okay? Next question. When may an amateur station transmit communications in which the licensee or the control operator has a pecuniary monetary interest, okay? So think of it this way. When you're talking about making money, you know, selling your gear, right? Selling maybe an amplifier, you could say that. Maybe it's a tuner or an antenna, okay? Coaxial cable, lots of things. It's only appropriate when other amateurs are being notified of the sale of apparatus. Apparatus is a wide berth, okay? It's radios, it's amplifiers, it's tuners. It's all stuff that has to do with ham radio. Receivers could be that too. Okay, so it's A, when other amateurs are being notified of the sale of apparatus normally used in an amateur station, and such activity is not done on a regular basis. It has nothing to do with C. C would seem plausible, right? when other amateurs are being notified of the sale of any item with a monetary value of less than $200. Jeez, no. It's just, you just don't do it all the time. That's the whole point. You just don't make it like the ham radio sale channel. No, don't do that. If you have something for sale, just mention it. Don't, like be an auction site. That would be brutal. So don't do that, okay? Next question on the technician. This is actually moving up to general now. I know we have a lot of folks, and I really made this general heavy. Now, keep in mind, you're going to have questions from technician and general, and this show is also going to cover heavy into schematics. If you're nervous about schematics, you're going to like this show. It'll help you, hopefully, okay? What's the maximum bandwidth permitted by FCC rules for amateur radio stations transmitting on upper sideband frequencies in the 60-meter band? Remember, 60 meters is put into 5 channels. Really, 5 different channels on 60. All right. The answer is A, 2.8 kilohertz. And that's typically what we transmit in ham radio. That's just what it is. So on 60 meters, remember, you just have to worry about 2.8 kilohertz and you're solid. Okay. Again, only 5 channels. 5 channels there around 5.3 megahertz. That's all there is on 60. All right. Next question. This will be general. It reads, what license examinations may you administer when you're an accredited VE, which means volunteer examiner, holding a general class operator license? Now, look at it this way. These are pretty simple, okay, except for, well, extras can do anyone. But the point is, you only can go the class below you. That's the best way to describe it. Okay, the answer is given: A, general and technician, B, general only, C, technician only, or D, extra, general, and technician. So the 3 licensed classes in the U.S. If you are a licensed general class operator in the United States and you'd like to be a volunteer examiner, you can do so, but you can only give tests, meaning be one of the people that helps administer it to people who are studying to get on the air, to be technicians. That's it. So general class, if you'd like to, and I know most radio clubs need volunteer examiners, please contact your local radio club. Tell them you'd like to do it. There's a lot of people who'd like to get on the air in ham radio, and they need your help. So that's a real good one. Remember, generals can administer to technicians. If you're extra, you can do extra, general, or technician. Okay? Next question. What types of messages for a third party in another country may be transmitted by an amateur station? So we're talking about messages sent to someone else, not the person you're talking to, that lives in another country. Okay? A, any message as long as the amateur operator is not paid. B, only messages for other licensed amateurs. Remember, we're talking about third party, not the person that's receiving the signal. C, only messages relating to amateur radio or remarks of a personal character or messages related to emergencies or disaster relief. So third party, meaning person not operating the radio you're making a contact with. Best way to describe it. That's the answer. It's C. The D one says any messages as long as the text of the message is recorded in the station log is totally irrelevant. Remember, we're talking about messages. So we make sure they're just related to amateur radio, personal character stuff, like you're a nice person, or I really think he's a great guy, stuff like that. Or messages relating to emergencies or disasters relief. That's it. That's as far as it goes. Thanks for the thumbs up. That's very nice. I see those when they pop up. It always makes me happy. Thanks, guys. It's a nice thing to do. You honor me. All right, next question. Which of the following is a recommended way to break into a contact when using the microphone? Phone is a microphone for new hams. Whenever you see phone, it doesn't mean you pick up your cell phone. It means microphone, okay? A, say QRZ several times, followed by your call sign. Look up QRZ. See what it means. You might be surprised. B, say your call sign during a break between transmissions by other stations. C, say break, 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 and then wait for a response. Good buddy. D, say CQ followed by the call sign of the other station. Of either station. Sounds plausible, I guess. The answer is B. Say your call sign. That's all you got to do. Just say your call sign between when the folks are talking, okay? That's all you need to do. And hopefully one of them hears you. You might come into a situation where one does hear you and the other one doesn't. It's the way it works sometimes in ham radio. Just give your call sign. If they don't hear you, don't do this. Don't keep saying it over and over and over again, louder and louder and louder to try and get their attention. Try it a few times. If they don't hear you, they just don't hear you. Okay? That's the best advice I can give you. All right. Next on the general. When may the FCC restrict normal frequency operations of amateur stations participating in races? Now, this is an interesting question. Races and ARRLs are both emergency communication groups. They're people who volunteer not only their radios, but their time to help coordinate emergencies or disaster relief. So A sounds great when they declare a temporary state of communication emergency. B, when they seize your equipment for use in disaster communication. What? Anyway. C, when only all amateur stations are instructed to stop transmitting. Or D, and this is important, when the president's war emergency powers have been invoked. All right. RACES is an emergency communication system. That's what it is. It's hams that volunteer to coordinate emergency communications during a disaster or some kind of an emergency. So the only time the FCC will ever restrict that is when the president declares war on someone. For example, in World War II, there was no ham radio in the United States. Zero. And the reason for it was the U.S. didn't want other countries to hear about maybe damage that could be caused in places of the United States. It's strictly part of the rules, and the FCC will only do that if the president has declared war on another land. That's it, okay? And that's if, like, we have imminent danger and we're in trouble. So keep that in mind. Very rare, but it has happened, okay? Next question, which HF antenna, for new hams, HF is high frequency. So this would be above the AM dial, okay, but below VHF. HF is 3 megahertz to 30 megahertz. Keep that in mind, 3 to 30. VHF is 30 to 300, okay? So then we're in the VHF band, okay? So HF, just above the AM dial. So which is the best to use for minimizing interference? Would it be a quarter wave vertical antenna? Nope. Actually, those pick up a lot of interference. B, an isotropic antenna. Keep in mind, an isotropic antenna is a fictitious thing. It's literally an antenna that floats in space with nothing around it and transmits omnidirectionally 360 degrees. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't have any base. It's like in space, like away from Earth, right? It just doesn't exist. C, a directional antenna, or D, an omnidirectional antenna. All right. For new hams, for people who are studying to be a general, a quarter wave vertical antenna is an omnidirectional antenna. They're both the same, okay? C is the right answer, a directional antenna. It's the best for minimizing interference because essentially what a directional antenna does is it focuses its beam in one area. So all the area around it that it's not listening to, right? Because it also transmits and listens one direction. So when you're minimizing interference, you're minimizing it because you're only listening to one area. That's why it minimizes interference, because all the area from around it and behind it are not as strong. That's the reason why. Doesn't mean they disappear. They don't. You can hear things off the back of a directional antenna, but we're talking about interference here more than, maybe someone with a 5, 9 plus 10 signal coming in off the back of the antenna. So keep that in mind. It is a directional. Next question. On the general exam in the U.S., What is the standard sideband used to generate a JT65 or JT9 digital signal when using AFSK in any amateur band? Okay. The standard sideband used for JT65 or JT9 is USB. It's upper sideband. Remember, when you're using a digital mode like JT65 or JT9, you're typically on upper sideband. So if you're trying to tune into one of those signals, use upper sideband. That's all. Scott, good evening. You're one of the guys we're doing the show for today. Welcome, buddy. Good to see you, pal. Scott in Colorado. You're going to get it. You're going to pass them, man. We're going to help you get through those tests. I am so happy you're here. I really am, because a lot of the work that was done for the show, by the time it was done, Scott, my fingers were frozen from taking all these tests and getting the answers. And I hope this helps you. I sincerely mean that, because we want you on the air, and we're going to make that QSO. I am so excited, buddy. We're going to make that contact. We will. I'm looking forward to talking radios with you. Next question. What is a possible benefit to radio communications resulting from periods of high geomagnetic activity? This is an interesting question. When we have high geomagnetic activity, the aurora borealis is very strong. Keep that in mind, okay? And the aurora can reflect very high frequency signals. That's the key. VHF. So signals that are above, 30 megahertz. That's where it really helps, okay? Not getting notifications for the stream. Have you hit the bell icon? What's going on there? YouTube sometimes does that, Scott. I'm sorry that happened. That should not happen. When you hit the bell icon, you should just get the notification, buddy. I'm sorry. So, okay, on this question, there's a few other ones that are here we should talk about. B is higher signal strength for HF signals passing through the polar regions is wrong. This has nothing to do with HF. C, improved HF long path propagation. Again, we're not helped here. We're not getting a benefit on HF. We're getting a benefit on VHF. D, reduced long delayed echoes. Keep in mind, when we're talking about high geomagnetic activity, it has to do with VHF, because the auroras can help reflect their signals. That's just how it works. Scott, sorry that happened, man. I don't know why. I want answers, YouTube. Sorry, buddy. Well, I'm glad you made it. That's good. You're here. That's the best part. All right. Next on the general. What's the approximate maximum distance along the Earth's surface that is normally covered in one hop using the E region? Now, remember, the ionosphere, let me get my notepad here. Hold on. The ionosphere is broken up really into three regions, okay? Okay, the answer here, by the way, 1,200 miles, okay? 180 miles for A, C is 2,500, D is 12,000. What is the approximate maximum distance along the Earth's surface that's normally covered in one hop using the E region? All right, one hop, E region. Things that just don't make sense to people who don't understand how ham radio works. Okay, we're talking about HF. So we're on 3 to 30 megahertz. All right, so here's the Earth. Basically, we'll just make the Earth's surface like this, okay? So we have the Earth's surface. Now, above the Earth's surface, right about 40 kilometers up or so, you have a region of the ionosphere that's called the D region. Let me get that a little farther apart. Sorry, guys. D region, okay? All right, so the D region is about 40 or so kilometers above the Earth. The D region doesn't reflect HF signals. In fact, it absorbs them. It absorbs them pretty heavily unless you go higher in frequency, okay? So once you get to about 40 meters, which is 7.0 megahertz or higher, your signals will go through the D region, okay? So they zip through. Above the D region, you have the E region, okay? Something else important to note. At night, the D region completely disappears. Once the sun goes away, because it's ionized, what happens is the sun comes down and it charges the ionosphere, okay? The D region gets the most of that. It gets highly charged, so much so that signals don't pass through it. It absorbs them like a sponge unless you're about 7 megahertz or higher. That's why 20 meters works so well, and so does 17, 15, 12, and sometimes 10 and 6, because the D region, it doesn't affect them, right? But at night, the E region up here is higher, okay? Looks like an X. That's terrible. My handwriting's bad. Sorry, I've got just weird, in a weird angle. So the E region is higher, okay? The skip coming from your transmitter right here is going to come up here, and one skip come down here, okay? That's going to be about 1,200 miles, okay? The E region is the second highest level of the ionosphere. Keep that in mind, 1,200 miles, one hop. Now, many times our signals will go more than one hop, especially over salt water. That's another question to keep in mind. Salt water helps to reflect our signals. So, say over here it goes over an ocean, right? It's going to bounce back up, hit the E region, and come back down again way over here. That's how it works. So, the E region is available at night. Okay, so let's just do it this way. We'll just keep things here. We'll get rid of the station here, and we'll keep you here on this station here. All right, so we have D, and we'll just kind of move it like this so you get a better angle of where it's at. This disappears at night. Then you have E up here, okay, and I'll mark it D, E, and then up here, which is quite a bit higher, you have the F region. All right, the F region during the day is actually 2 segments, okay? It's called F1 and F2, all right? Now, during the day, they exist. You can use them very well on, 20, 17, 15, 12, those kind of frequencies, 10 when the sunspots get better. You can use the F region really, really well. Now, at night, remember, the D region disappears. That's what makes working on 80 meters and getting long distance possible, okay? The E region stays the same. It stays right where it is, about 1,200 miles per hop. So if you're going up here in the E, you're at 1,200 miles. However, at night, the F region combines. So this area here becomes really strong at night. So F1 and 2 combine together to make a dense region. At night, your signal goes way up here and it comes way down here. You see the difference in my terrible child drawing? So on the test, it may ask you about the F region. The answer is 2,500 miles, okay? That's the difference. On E, it'll be 1,200. On F, it'll be about 2,500. However, in the real world, you can do a lot better than that. It can be a lot different and make a big difference for you. So that'll hopefully help understand a little bit more of the ionosphere and how important it is to us. When we have more sunspots, the ionosphere helps us so much because the sunspots help to give us more ions. Now, that may sound strange, but they do. More ions, when they get charged by the sun and the radiation from all of those sunspots, they get supercharged once a radio signal hits it. They vibrate quickly and send the signal back to Earth. That's how it works. When there's a lot of sunspots, think of it this way. They get like supercharged, so the signals really bounce far. Makes a huge difference. It makes it possible for frequencies that are maybe on 15, 12, 10, even 6 meters work really well because there's so many ions inside the ionosphere. It helps those higher frequencies to work well too. Same with the F region. I hope that helps. The ionosphere is our best friend in ham radio. Thor, good to see you, buddy. Good to see you. And yes, good luck, Scott. You're going to do great. Remember the ionosphere, Scott. It will help you. F1 and F2 combined, it's the highest of the three regions. D disappears during the day. E will get you 1,200 miles, they say. F will get you 2,500. Ozzy, hello, our new extra KY4DA. Welcome to the show. All right, next question for folks that want to get their licenses. This is on the general. A couple of questions for you. What item of test equipment contains horizontal and vertical channel amplifiers? This one, if you think about it visually, it makes perfect sense. Horizontal and vertical amplifiers are basically done on an oscilloscope. Okay, when you have test equipment that contains these two items, remember an oscilloscope shows both upper and lower frequency sweeps. So full phase, it shows a full phase of frequency. An ohmmeter won't do that. A signal generator doesn't do that. An ammeter tests amperage, but when you're looking at test equipment that contains both horizontal and vertical channel amplifiers, it's an oscilloscope. That's what it is. Next question. Which of the following is an advantage of a receiver digital signal processor? For new hams, DSP means digital signal processor. IF, incoming filter. Okay, sorry, incoming frequency filter. Okay, so the digital signal processing incoming frequency filter as compared to an analog filter. Okay, so remember, when we're talking about super heterodyne radios, you have crystal roofing filters. Okay, they're basically limited to a certain amount. But what it does, on most cases, it will lower what a radio does from the factory. So from the factory, it might go to 3 kilohertz, say on sideband. Well, if you get an analog filter that, has a crystal roofing filter, say of 2.4 kilohertz, now that radio can go down and narrow that passband to 2.4 kilohertz, okay? So when you have a digital or software-defined radio, okay, it can be adjusted infinitely. Very, very important to remember. So, which of the following is an advantage of a receiver digital signal processor incoming frequency filter as compared to an analog filter? It's A. A wide range of filter bandwidths and shapes can be created. Let me show you what it looks like. This is a good example. We'll move over to the ICOM 7300, okay? Listen to it for a second. We have a signal right here. We'll get the signal in.
Right Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. And by the way, I stayed overnight at his house in Dayton, Ohio.
Okay, so we're on filter 1, which is 3 kilohertz. Okay, so we're at a 3 kilohertz filter range. Now watch what happens as we narrow the bandwidth. This is on a digital signal processing filter. Listen.
DX60B there. That was my very first job.
So you move it a little narrow. Move it back.
Back in 1972 at Major Air Force Base.
Here it comes in better.
That was my first rig there. Was a DX60B.
There you go.
I used it with a hammer.
See how that works?
G100C.
It's a great example of digital signal processing. Okay, it allows you to infinitely change the incoming signal to a way that will help you. Okay, when you have analog filters, you have a limit to how much it will lower the passband down and help you pick up a signal. Digital signal processors inside SDRs really help you narrow it down without any crystal roofing filters. It's basically infinite. That's why SDRs are so powerful. You'll love them. So that's the big difference, and it shows it practically. There is a practical example of a DSP. All right, next question. What frequency range is occupied by a 3 kilohertz upper sideband signal with the displayed carrier frequency set to 13.347 megahertz? Now you're at nearly, in fact, you are at the very top of what you can use on 20 meters, okay? Is it A, 13.347 to 14.347 to 14.647? We're talking 3 kilohertz here. okay, 3 kilohertz. B, 14.347 to 14.350. Keeping in mind, 14.350 is the top of 20 meters. That's as high as you can transmit, okay? C, 14.344. So now they're kind of going down 3 kilohertz to 14.347. That would be lower sideband then. Remember, we're talking upper sideband. Or D, 14.3455 to 14.3485. Okay, we're on upper sideband. Practical example is this. Okay, by the way, this puts you right at the edge of the 20-meter band. All right, sideband filters, how they work, what's important. By the way, hello, Ozzy. Good to see you. Welcome to the show. Good to see you. Nice as always. Ozzy is now an examiner. He just got his extra license. We're grateful for that. Congratulations. He's happy to answer any questions. That's nice. Thanks, Ozzy. Okay. Sideband, upper and lower. Okay. Let's say, for example, you're on 20 meters. Okay. You're in this question, you're at 14.350 and 14.347. Okay, here's your signal. Your carrier, your center frequency is right there. You're at 14.347. You're on upper sideband. In fact, we'll make sure and mark it here so we don't confuse anybody. Okay, upper sideband, 13.347 to 14.350 is the answer. Here's why. When you transmit, you're using sideband. You're not using AM. You're only using a sideband, which is just part of a carrier. It's wonderful because it only modulates when you speak or when you hit your data key. That's it. That's the only time it transmits. Otherwise, there's nothing transmitted. It's going to transmit essentially just like this. Okay? It might be up here too, but it's going to drop right there at 14.350. That's the end. It's going to drop right at 14.350, which is the end of 20 meters. Okay? So lower sideband works exactly the opposite. Let's say we're at the bottom of 40 meters. Okay, so we're at, 20 meters. So we're at 14.0. Okay, if you're at 14.000, okay, which you wouldn't be on upper sideband, lower sideband, you wouldn't be. But let's say you hit the wrong key on the radio and you're in lower sideband. You're now transmitting off the band, okay, which you don't want to do. You want upper sideband. So let's move it to 40 meters so we don't confuse you. And we'll now put the label here, lower sideband. All right. So on lower sideband, on 40, you're going to be at 7 megahertz, okay? And you're not going to be using phone here. You won't. But if you were using a 3 kilohertz typical lower sideband transmission, you would need to be at 7.003, okay? Because at 7.003, your signal goes the opposite direction and stops at 7. That's lower sideband. Sideband uses only one sideband of a radio frequency transmitter. That's it. Only uses 3 kilohertz. But the kilohertz transmission goes one direction. The radios are so, I guess the best word to say is they're so smart. They can basically move the transmitter over for you. So you're either going to transmit from your center frequency forward 3 kilohertz. Some radios, like the ICOM, 2.9. Some Yaesus can run 4. But keep in mind, we're talking typical 3 kilohertz bandwidth. So from your carrier frequency, remember, upper sideband, +3. Lower sideband, -3. If you keep that simple formula in your head for your test, you'll be golden. Remember, again, we'll say it one more time, upper sideband, +3 on the measurement, okay? Lower sideband, -3. If you keep that simple formula, you'll be fine, okay? Remember that. Next question. On the general in the U.S., Which of the following is a disadvantage of using wind as the primary source of power for an emergency station? The answer is C. Wind is tough unless you live in a very windy area that constantly generates power. Okay? A large energy storage system, which means lots of batteries, is needed to supply power when the wind isn't blowing. Because remember, you've got to recharge. You got to recharge. And without having enough wind to constantly charge up the amperage necessary for your radio, maybe your tuner, possibly your laptop, you've got to have enough power generating from that wind station. That's why batteries are needed. So wind is not really the best way to do mobile. Solar is. Solar is much easier. You have solar panels, a charge controller, and battery. That's all you have. Pretty simple. We're going to be doing shows from Hawaii coming up in February, which will use that exact technology. Solar panels, charge controller, and battery. Should be fun. Next question. General. What happens when the impedance of an electrical load is equal to the output impedance of a power source, assuming both impedances are resistive? Real good example. When your antenna is matched 1-to-1, your radio's happy. It can deliver all the watts to the transmitters, right from the transmitter to your antenna. Your antenna is at this point what's called resonant, means it's tuned to the output impedance of your transmitter. That's why things like antenna analyzers are very important to check your antenna, your tuning, to make sure that it's the proper length to transmit on the frequency you want to. And keep in mind, for new hams, the frequency you want to transmit at could be 1-to-1, which is great. It's what you want, 1-to-1. But because most antennas, when they're tuned at 1-to-1, will stay at a low impedance for a long ways, it's called basically the sweep of the frequency. It'll be a curve, and it'll typically keep you low enough to transmit for quite a distance, both ahead and behind the frequency with which you're transmitting at. Okay? Give you some more. We want to load you up tonight, trying to get you guys going on this. Want you guys to pass the test. What dB change represents a 2 times increase or decrease in power? Remember, we're talking doubling your power. Now, and we're talking about also what it looks like on the signal strength meter. So, if you double your power, what's going to be the difference on the receive end on the S meter? The answer is B, approximately 3 decibels. So when you increase your power, you're going to gain about 3 dB. Keep in mind, this is a trick question in a way. If you're running QRP and you're at 5 watts, you double it to 10, well, you're already coming in real light, okay? You're at 100 watts. You double it to 200. You're doing good, but it's not going to make a gigantic difference on the S meter. It depends much on propagation, but in the technical world, 3 dB if you double your power, okay? Otherwise, you'd be at 5 watts, to 10, 3 dB, 10 to 20, 3 more dB, which it is, but technically you could get to like 50 dB pretty quickly. Just keep in mind, 3 dB means doubling your power. All right, next question. What is the capacitance of a 20 microfarad capacitor connected in series with a 50 microfarad capacitor? Now, this is one of those questions that for most hams, they're going to have a trouble with the R there because of the math involved. The answer is 14.3 microfarads. If you see 20 and 50 together, 14.3 microfarads. To be honest, that's how I remembered it. That's, to be honest and truthful, I remembered it that way. There's not a lot of math on these questions, on these tests. There aren't. There's not a tremendous amount. Don't get stuck on math. There's going to be very few of these kind of questions on the test. So, Scott, please don't worry about it. You're not going to be inundated with a bunch of figures, maybe 2 or 3 questions. Which of the following solid-state devices is most like a vacuum tube in its general operating characteristics? Hang on. Okay, sorry about the stream there, guys. It's called trying to reach too far to get something. The answer for this question, which of the following solid-state devices is most like a vacuum tube in its general operating characteristics? It's not a bipolar transistor, and it's not a tunnel diode. It is not a varistor. It's a field effect transistor. Okay, field effect transistors came to us really in the 60s. And then as they developed them, you started seeing televisions without tubes. Things started improving and becoming smaller. Okay, let me show you a picture real quick. Something I've waited to show you a long time. This is a vacuum tube. This is a 3500 ZG amplifying tube. It's wonderful. It's a neat piece of art. Used to be in amplifiers, your plate basically up here, your grid is right here. All that gray ribbing is your grid. That's how you controlled the power that the amplifier would make from the tube. Again, the tube is in sealed form. The electricity comes in through here. The electrons come up quickly to the top plate. The grid helps to control how much power the tube would make. That's how tubes work. They amplify power from the base to the top. That's how they worked. The grid controls how much of that power is actually used. In field effect transistors, it's done the same way, but more precisely. Okay, it can be measured to how much it will produce. The problem is when you have field effect transistors in amplifiers, some people will drive them too hard by putting too much power into them to push them more than their limits. And what happens is you get distortion. Okay? You push the field effect, or FET as they're known. Let me get the picture back up, the question back up. The FET, or field effect transistor, gets pushed too hard by someone that's putting too much power into it. Doesn't make more power, it just distorts what you're doing. So keep in mind, keep your FETs safe. Just don't overdrive them, okay? I'm going to get to some schematics now because there's so many schematics for people, and really this can be the part that gets people stuck. I don't want that, okay? I know these are small, but try and just understand I did the best I could with what I had to work with here. Okay, and this is going to be a series of schematics. What is component 1 in figure T1? Component number 1 is a resistor. Whenever you see that line that goes up and down in V form, it is a resistor, okay? In this one, you see number 5, that's a ground, okay? Number 2 is a transistor, okay? That's a T. Remember we talked about comes into the circle to the big vertical or horizontal. It can be mounted two ways. The T, there's a transistor. 3 is a lamp. 4 is the power. That's the battery. Okay, so remember that. That's how that works. Next one that's on the schematics. I have to find them. Sorry. Next one, component 2 in T1. Component 2. Now we're at the transistor. See the T? That's where it is. So there is your transistor. Same components here as we had before. The same exact components. All right. Next schematic, important for generals and techs. What is component 3 in figure T1? It's the lamp. Okay. So again, we've moved from number 1, which was the resistor. Number 2 is a transistor. Number 3 is a lamp. Okay. That's a lamp. All right. Next one, schematics. Just trying to help you remember them, okay? Component 4 in T1. Now we're talking about the battery, okay? So we've went from 1, which is a resistor, 2, transistor, 3, lamp, 4, the battery. That's the battery for the circuit, okay? All right, let's move up. Now we answer the 5th one. Oh, we're moving on, sorry. What's component 6 in figure T2? I know it's small. I'm so sorry. I really mean that. Number 6 is a capacitor, okay? A capacitor. We're going to go through all of these here, okay? So for folks that are worried about schematics, I know it can be tough. I want to try and help you. Please, again, forgive how small this is, okay? I'm sorry about that. I wish I could make it bigger. Continue on. What is component 8 in that same schematic, okay? 8 is a light-emitting diode. You'll always know the light-emitting diode because it has dual arrows coming out of it, okay? You see the triangle going into a line, and then lines with arrows coming away from it. Easy to remember an LED that way. Triangle, that's your power going in, and the light coming out. That's the arrows, okay? Remember, the light coming out is the arrows. You'll have it. You're going to nail it. I know you guys will. You will nail this. Okay, now we move to component number 9. See number 9 up there in the top right. Now we have that resistor. Remember the up and down V, okay? But it has a tap in it. See that? Right after the V, right between 9 and 10, there's a component that taps into it. That means it's variable, okay? It's a variable resistor. Take a close look. You see number 7, that's a resistor. But then number 9, there's another resistor there, but it's tapped in. That's a variable resistor now, okay? Another good example for a variable resistor is going to be a potentiometer. That's your volume knob, right? Your squelch and RF gain. Variable resistors. That's what they look like. That's the practical example of what they are. All right, next question. Component 4 again. Sorry it's so small. What's component 4 now in figure T2? Take a look at component 4. It's one point that no wires connect to it. Remember that. It's going to help you in your test. Component 4 is a transformer. Okay, you see the windings on both sides. You see the core. Core is right in the middle. That is a transformer. Number 1 looks different in this one. That's your power. That's your plug-in. Looks just like a plug, right? So there's your light-emitting diode again. The little arrows pointing out of the little triangle. Your capacitor there at number 6. Your variable resistor there at number 9. Number 10 we're going to get to. Number 10 is a Zener diode. We'll show that here right now, I think. Nope, we're moving on, but it will be there. Component 3 in figure T2, it's a variable inductor. Now remember, the transformer has no lines hooking up to it. No lines are hooking up to it. But when we're talking about a variable inductor, we do. The lines connect on inductors, okay? When they're variable, there's a tap into it. But unlike the resistor, it's a half arc, okay? Half arc with a line tapping into it. So, variable inductor. Remember that. Let me go back to this one here. I think we still have this schematic, but I do want to show it again. Number 10. You see number 10. It is a little triangle going to, if you look at it on its side, it's a Z. See, it's shaped like a Z. That's a Zener diode. Remember that schematic because it's in a few of the questions. Triangle going to a little shaped Z is a Zener diode. We'll probably get there now because I've already gave it away. Let's move on. Okay. What's component 4 in figure T3? I know they're small. Sorry, my friends. Remember, 4 looks like a kite. 4 always. The antenna always looks like a kite. A kite flies in the air. An antenna is in the air. Remember that schematic. Should be easy that way. Like a kite, the antenna goes up in the air. That is an antenna. So whenever you see the little kite up there, you've got an antenna. Just a few more on the schematics. We want to get people past. This one here, people are going, what? Huh? Hey, new folks. Oh my gosh. Don't turn off the stream, please. Okay. All right. Which symbol in figure G71 represents a field effect transistor. Now, this is where we have that. Remember I showed you the tube, and we talked about how FETs, or field effect transistors, replaced tubes because they can amplify power, okay? In this case, very small, very small. It is C, symbol number 1. I know it's tiny and I'm so small. It's so small. My goodness. I look at this too and I'm trying to see it because my eyes are so old. I'm moving in just to help you. I'm sorry, my friends. All right. So when we look at this, the answer is C, number 1. If you look at this really small schematic, okay? Jeez. You take a look at it and you see right there in the center. Remember, we talked about transistors forming a T. And there it is, right dead center. That's a field effect transistor. Remember, field effect transistors have a triangle going in, then the 2 lines coming out, okay? Triangle going in, field effect transistor. Number 2 is a transistor. That's the difference. No triangle going in, okay? That's how I remembered it. It helped me out a lot. Schematics are not that hard. You can learn them if you concentrate. Which symbol in figure G71 represents a Zener diode? Now we're talking it. Now we're doing the Zener. Look carefully. Okay, it's number 5. Number 5 is right there, kind of in the middle top. You see it kind of makes a little squiggly Z. There it is. That's a Zener diode. Again, when you see the little arrow there with the little Z, it kind of gives itself away. That's one that you should always remember, because Zener diodes, they kind of look like a Z on the screen, on your little schematic. Okay. Which symbol in figure G71 represents an NPN, junction transistor? NPN, junction transistors, number 2. Same schematic. This is the same schematic, okay? Remember, we have the FET, number 1. The NPN transistor is number 2. Follow along, straight line. You'll follow it just to the right of the field effect transistor. All right. Last 2 on the schematics. Which symbol in figure G71 represents a multiple winding transformer? This gives itself away. Look for the little arcs. Okay? Small to see. It's on the far right at the top. Number 6. That is where you get your multiple winding transformer. Remember, there's a part of it that doesn't connect to the schematic. That means it's a transformer. All right. Multiple winding transformer, take a look on the other side. Instead of having the 2 lines and that's it, it has a little one arc, and it goes out. That's a multiple winding transformer. That's how you do it. Just remember little things to each schematic symbol, and you'll have your own way of doing it. I did for me. I remember the antenna as a kite. I remember the ground where it always looked like forks, fork in the ground. Yeah, those are kind of how I did it. You'll find your own way. Last one. Which symbol in figure G71 represents a tapped inductor? Now, again, we're going to have a wire that comes away from it, away from the main, the main circuit, comes towards the piece, and then points into it. That's what we're looking for. So whenever you think of a tapped or variable component, it's going to have something that sticks out, goes back towards the component, and points into it. In this case, I know it's small. It's number 7, okay? See how number 7, it has the arcs in it, okay? Again, that's an inductor, different from the transformer. The transformer has a line that comes away from it, okay? This doesn't have a line. That's the difference between a transistor and an inductor, okay? No line to separate it. That's the difference, okay? This doesn't have a line. It just has a tap into it. So it's a tapped inductor. Okay, remember on schematics, when you have the half arcs, line between them, transformer. When you're talking inductor, you usually have just one set of arcs, and that's it. If it's a tapped inductor, it's one set of arcs and a line going into it at a certain point. Okay? That's the way to remember it. I know you'll do it. Scott, all you guys, study your schematic items. Remember them the best you can with Q codes. Q codes are simple. Okay? You might get a Q code question. Okay? QTH, home. Remember, H for home. It's where you're at. It's your location. QTH, QT, home. Okay? When you're talking QSB, that's fade. Remember it this way. QSB, Q signal bad. Fading. QSB, simple. Simple to remember it that way. So QSB, signal bad. Okay? If you're talking about, say, QSL, understand. Okay? I understand. Simple. Okay? When you're talking about QRM, you might see QRM there. Remember, QRM is man-made interference. It's made by man. Okay? Usually it's another station that's too close to your signal. That's QRM. QRN is in Nancy. QRN is environmental noise. That's static. It could be lightning strike somewhere. Could just be environmental noise. But QRN is environmental. So QRN, environmental. Learn your Q codes. That'll help you too. And I hope those helped. There are things that are in ham radio that I can tell you as an extra that worked pretty hard, but had a lot of knowledge of radio to begin with. Learn how HF works different from VHF. HF is off the ionosphere. VHF is point to point. So think of it as tower here, maybe 10 miles apart. They transmit directly to each other. They don't bounce up off the ionosphere. UHF and microwave work exactly the same. HF's different. HF, 3 to 30 megahertz. And remember, 160 is really part of medium wave. Believe it or not, it really is. Works the same way though. AM radio works the same way, or medium wave. It bounces off the ionosphere. That's the reason that you can hear far off medium wave stations at night. Maybe you're in Florida, you tune to 1120, and you're hearing KMOX out of St. Louis, Missouri. It's because it's bouncing off the ionosphere to you. Medium wave does that, just like HF. Okay? If you're in the West, perhaps you're in, I don't know, let's say Boise, Idaho, and you're hearing KNBR on 680 out of San Francisco. Again, bounces off the ionosphere, reaches your receiver. That's the difference. Ham radio is so cool because it gives you the opportunity to literally be everything that's in a commercial radio station and be in charge of it. Do you guys realize that? Being someone that was in commercial radio for many years, I sat here. I was on the microphone. I played records. I announced songs. I did promotions. I mean, I remember Live Aid. I remember all the stuff that they used to do in the 80s, Band-Aid, We Are the World, all those songs, from a time when it was pretty cool, right? Radio was fun in the 80s. It really was. And we had engineers that took care of our processing. We had engineers that took care of the transmitter and the tower. We had people who cleaned up our studio. Well, when you're in ham radio, you keep your studio clean. You also get to use the microphone, like in this case, or you use the keyboard to send messages, or your camera to send pictures. You're the DJ. But you're also the chief engineer. You're in charge of your transmitter. You're in charge of the line that goes from your transmitter all the way to your tower, or your dipole antenna, or your directional. You're also in charge of it working properly and being grounded properly. Okay? Remember this too. One last little element that I need to tell you here that's important. because this is really dedicated to people who are wanting to be licensed in ham radio. When you ground, something that will help you. You have your ground rod, buy them at your home improvement store. Okay? Home improvement stores carry ground rods. They're copper clad steel. They're not going to be pure copper. If they would cost a fortune. Ground them with a clamp. Use a wire. 10 gauge, great. Copper braid, great. Run it as short as you can to your shack. Once it gets in there, you ground everything at the same place. Right there. You don't, like if you've got like a ground strap here, okay, looks great. But if you start grounding here, 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 and so forth, you're going to start getting ground loops in between all these grounds. You don't want that. It's going to hurt you. So instead of grounding in all these places, okay, ground in one. Ground every place to one spot. As close as you can to that copper. As close as you can. Ground everything as close as you can. Your radio, your tuner, your amplifier, everything. Ground it in one place. That will help you tremendously. Don't ground things along a giant bar. Ground them in one place. As close as you can to your ground. Any questions? I'll be happy to do whatever I can to answer them, okay? Can you subscribe to my channel, dude? Perfect trick shots? No. Thanks for asking. Oh, boy. Ozzy says he can answer any questions, test-related. He's doing VE stuff. Scott, we're grateful to have you. Thank you for being here. Part of the reason we did the show. So, again, the most important thing to do, make sure your grounds are short and ground them in one place. Another thing Bob Heil recommends is to take the 3-prong plug, that's got the missing ground, plug in your gear that way because you're already plugging your chassis into your ground. That's one thing he suggests. I'm neutral on that. I don't think either way that's something I would do. Greg, there you go. Kilo Fox 0, Charlie Union Zulu. Thanks for your time tonight. I'm going to take my general next week. You see they announced today that the ham test is going up to $35. That's what I paid. Yeah, I paid $35. But the nice thing about that, Greg, is that you pass your test and you just go through one thing at a time, right? Let's say, for example, you go general and extra. It's only $35 for both tests. If you do them both and pass them, I would say go for the extra, man. Seriously, go for your general, and they'll ask you if you want to go further and get your general. Go for it. Get your extra. Get your extra too. You might get it. Why not? You should go for it, man. You should. Seriously. And for people who are technicians, I know that this is difficult stuff for people just getting into amateur radio, but if you study hard enough, and you use the right online course, and there's plenty of great online courses to use, or you're part of a ham radio club. You go through their classes. Great stuff also on the internet. There are folks that teach this who do it brilliantly. You've probably seen their channels. I try and go through the test questions and tell you why in layman's terms the best that I know how, but there's other channels too. Just go for it. What have you got to lose? I mean, yeah, it might be $35, but you can still do real good. You can pass it. Have confidence in yourself. Learn your schematics. That'll help. Your Q codes will help. Don't worry about math. You're limited on your math questions. You should do just fine. I know you can do it. I know you can. So, hidden bunker. It's true. He's right. Thor is referring to this. That's why.
One show that they haven't been able to cancel. Welcome to the YouTube with Friends show. Now, from the hidden bunker that may or may not be in Oregon, here's Larry.
See, at this point, I'd say, welcome wherever you are, whoever you may be. Channel today, we're so glad you're here. Let us know where you're watching from. Yada, yada, yada. Yours spins backwards, by the way. Did you notice that? And and it zooms right back in. Spins around backwards and it stops right on the Great Lakes area. About to zoom in right now, and here we go. Right in the old USA, right around Detroit. Or Chicago. Yeah. Thanks, Thor. Oh, that's great. John, you're welcome. Glad you're here, man. I really am. This whole show is dedicated just to help people. And I'm sorry, I haven't done that. And I really mean that. I haven't done that. That's the passion here behind the channel, is to help people get their license. It means a lot. So please, just know it's very, very good. And it's helpful. Yeah. Ozzy with a statement here. I don't like to promote stuff here. I'll be honest. Yeah, I get it. I get it. I just hear, I like to promote people I know or that I'm comfortable with. Like the company that I used for my ham test was very good. It really was. But you may find someone that's better than them. And, to be honest, there are plenty of online study tools that will help you learn ham radio. I'd rather have you find them and get comfortable with one. For example, my father-in-law, who I didn't know wanted to be a ham for years, found an online study course he really liked that I couldn't stand, but he did it. He got his general, got his tech, bang, got his general, bang. Worked for him. So there's going to be an online course that works great for you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to help answer them. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to refer you to someone who does. I'm just here to try and help y'all get on there. Get on the air and have some fun. Speaking of which, we haven't done this for a while. Let's see what's up on 20 meters. It's a little late now for this area. Yeah, a little late. So we'll scoot over to 40. We'll scoot to 40, see how that looks. Hang on. Here's your short wave. Watch what we'll do. We're going to move it to AM. It really shows the carrier and the sidebands. You'll understand sidebands and carriers better. This is a great radio to show you to you on. Here we go. Okay. This shows the carrier, which is what we're tuned to, and the sidebands. Remember, AM has a center carrier, which is always broadcasting. The pieces that go out, if you see the little look like raindrops going out, those are the sidebands. So if you were to take this part here and remove it, you'd see lower sideband. Okay? Let me turn this off here. Sorry. So you'd be seeing lower sideband. Okay. So lower sideband. So over here on this side here would be, this is the carrier. You can see the lines coming down from the carrier. It's a great example of how AM works. There's your carrier. And then everything this way is the lower sideband portion of that carrier. From the carrier over here, where you see all the lines coming down, that's the carrier again. Up here is the upper sideband portion. See, that's why AM sounds so much better in many ways than sideband, because there's a lot more bandwidth to work with to put fidelity like bass, mid, and treble in. It's a good example of AM right there. Glad we finished with that. It's good. So you're going to make it. I know you're going to make it. And I know absolutely you're going to find whatever it is going to help you to help you. I mean that. Okay. Now, Ozzy is a new extra. I'm going to put this up for you, Ozzy, because I think you're a great guy. I really do. His team leader offers free test sessions for military vets, first responders, minors. You must bring your ID, okay? Prove you're a vet, prove you're in the military. If you're a first responder, things like that. Give free lessons there in California. He's in the LA area. So for folks that want to get hooked up in Southern California, Ozzy's your guy. Yeah, he'll help you out with it. If you're outside the Southland of California, find your local ham radio club or click on the link here in this video to the American Radio Relay League. They'll connect you. Even if you're outside the United States, they can help you get hooked up with someone who can help you get licensed. That's the main point. Okay? This whole show is dedicated only to helping people get licensed. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Larry. My call sign's Kilo 7 Hotel November. It has truly been my honor and privilege to help you. I hope this did help you. I hope that some of the, tricks that I use to pass the test help you as well, especially in Q codes. I hope that you understand you will do this. You will. It's not as hard as you think. Don't let the math thing scare you. Just go in with a good attitude and a good night's sleep. Bring those number 2 pencils. Make sure you have your thinking cap screwed on. You'll do fine. I know you will. And then you got to tell us about it because we're going to celebrate big time, all right? Scott in Colorado, John, all of y'all, thank you so much. Get that test pass and get on the air because we want to make a QSO with you. Remember, Friday night here, starting at 5 p.m. Pacific, that is 0100 UTC on Saturday. CQ Calling, powered by MFJ, will be on the channel. Hope to see you on 40 meters above 7.178 so the generals can join in. Until tomorrow, God bless you. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you for watching Ham Radio Live. Goodbye, everybody.